This happened just a couple of weeks into summer, the first summer after high school, the only one I'd ever have with no real responsibilities, no deadlines, no career to think about, no college assignments, just freedom. And everyone knows, the beginning of summer feels like magic. I was living my best life. Out here in Wyoming, there's this thing, kind of a tradition. When you graduate, you drive way out into the plateaus and go rock climbing as your rite of passage. A celebration of freedom, where skill and nerve collide with nature. My friends and I had been talking about it for weeks. And finally, the day came. It was me, Alexandra, Nick, and Jack. We'd all been inseparable since middle school. Alex was the only one with a reliable car, a Jeep she was obsessed with. She never drank, so naturally, she was the driver. The rest of us? We packed a few beers to crack open once we reached the top of whatever plateau we decided to climb. The plan was simple. Check out Flaming Gorge Lookout first, then drive deeper into the plateau country until we found the perfect spot. And man, the lookout was breathtaking. One of those views that makes you remember why you love living in Wyoming at all. After about an hour of soaking it in and snapping pictures, we piled back into the Jeep, driving slow along Highway 141, scanning for climbing spots. That's when we saw it. A stretch of massive rock formations off the side of the road. Challenging, but doable. Perfect. Alex pulled into a small gravel lot, and we loaded up with gear and backpacks filled with drinks. The climb would take maybe 15 minutes. Not too crazy, just a steady scramble up the rock. Alex, of course, went first. She was the pro. I followed, then Nick, and Jack brought up the rear. When we reached the top, it was everything we hoped for. Miles and miles of endless Wyoming wilderness stretching in every direction. The kind of view that makes you feel untouchable. We cracked open our beers, laughing, talking about friends from school, the future. But then, I noticed something. A red pickup truck, speeding down the highway. I didn't think much of it until it suddenly screeched to a halt. Dead stop, right in the middle of the road. Then, it reversed, slowly, deliberately, until it backed into the gravel lot where Alex's Jeep was parked. The four of us went quiet. We watched as the driver got out. A man, tall, broad build, too far to see his face. At first, we thought, maybe he was a hiker or another climber. But then, he started circling Alex's Jeep, peering into the windows, jiggling the door handles, inspecting it, like he was planning to break in. Nick shouted from the top of the plateau, "Hey!" The man jumped, startled, and looked around until he spotted us. He waved. We thought that was it. He'd seen the Jeep wasn't alone. He'd get back in his truck and leave. But no, he went right back to prowling around Alex's car. That's when Jack yelled something I'll never forget. "We're armed." We weren't. Not even close. But Jack thought bluffing might scare him. Instead, the man looked up at us and yelled back, "Me too, kiddo." And then he raised something in the air. I couldn't see clearly, but I knew. A gun. What happened next felt unreal. The man slammed his shoulder into the Jeep's windows. Once. Twice. The sound echoed across the lot. Alex snapped. She started screaming at him to stop. We all joined in, shouting, panicked, scrambling down the rock face as fast as we could. Halfway down, we heard it. The sharp, sickening sound of glass shattering. By the time we hit the ground, we were sprinting toward the Jeep. The man turned, lifted his arm, and this time I saw it clearly. A gun. He aimed it right at us and barked a single command. Stop. We froze. Hands in the air. Phones, wallets on the ground. We obeyed without a word. Then, still pointing the gun, he ordered us to back away while he collected everything. I finally got a clear look at his face. An older man, white, maybe in his 50s, scraggly beard, weathered skin. Nothing unique, nothing that would ever stand out in a lineup. That's what terrified me most. After pocketing our stuff, he pulled out a knife and stabbed Alex's tire. 1, 2, 3 times. Then, he walked calmly back to his truck. I noticed something then. No license plates. He drove away. No words. No rush. Just gone. Alex was furious, shaking with rage. Me? I was just scared. Being stared down at gunpoint changes you. We swapped out the tire as fast as we could, but deep down, we knew he was long gone. Alex floored it down the highway anyway, eyes darting in every direction. But it was useless. When we finally got back to town, we used her mom's phone to call the police. We gave them everything we could. The truck, his face, his age. But with no license plates, they told us there wasn't much they could do. We never heard back. That day should have been the highlight of our summer. Instead, it ruined everything. We stopped going to remote places for months. Even now, I don't think any of us feel safe when the road is too empty. And me? I definitely don't. My name is Sophia, and this story happened 3 years ago. When I was just 19, my brother Luke had just graduated from college in California, and the two of us were driving cross-country, all the way back home to New Jersey. Luke had been living out west for 4 years, and in that time, he had gathered a full apartment's worth of stuff. Furniture, electronics, books, everything. There was no way he could fly home with all of it. But honestly, that wasn't the only reason we decided to drive. A cross-country road trip? Sign me up any day of the week. I saw it as my summer vacation, maybe even something better. We could have taken the quick route through Nevada and Colorado, but Luke wanted to see more of the country he'd spent years studying, and I had never seen places like Zion or the Grand Canyon, so we chose the southern path. Luke also insisted on renting a U-Haul. He didn't want to ship his stuff, or sell it, or start fresh. I think, deep down, he was just trying to save money like any fresh college grad would. The U-Haul wasn't massive, but it was big enough that I felt like we were driving a small moving truck across the country. Before we left, both our parents, and almost every travel forum online, gave us the same warning. Be careful in New Mexico. Not that the entire state was dangerous, but the stories were everywhere. Travelers scammed, robbed, trapped in strange situations in remote desert towns. Our dad gave us one clear rule: don't stop unless you absolutely have to. If you do stop, only use big gas stations and get back on the highway immediately. So Luke and I made a promise. We'd fill up in Arizona, drive straight through New Mexico, and only stop again once we hit Texas. It was a perfect plan. At first, the trip was everything I had dreamed of. Zion was breathtaking. The Grand Canyon even more than I imagined. Even the long stretches of Arizona highway were beautiful in ways I never expected. But then, in the middle of New Mexico's empty desert roads, everything started to fall apart. The U-Haul burned through gas faster than Luke had calculated. The gauge was dropping too quickly, and suddenly our perfect plan didn't seem so perfect anymore. We checked the GPS. The next gas station, 40 miles away. but the needle was already dipping below a quarter tank, and Luke was nervous. He pulled over to check the map, and that's when reality hit us. We didn't have a choice. There was a tiny town just 10 miles ahead, with a gas station marked on the GPS. Not ideal, but better than running out of gas in the middle of the desert. So we went. The town was small, really small, probably only a few hundred people, if that, and it had this strange stillness, not quiet like any other small town. This was different. Run-down buildings, a faded main street, no movement, no travelers, not even cars passing through, even though the highway was closed. It felt wrong. The gas station looked ordinary enough, just a few pumps and a tiny convenience store. But as Luke started filling up the tank, I felt the stares. A few locals lingering around, watching us, not aggressive, just watching. One man leaned against the store, smoking, his eyes locked on me, and stayed there. I forced myself to look away. I told myself it was just because we were outsiders. In a U-Haul with California plates. Nothing happened. We paid, we fueled up, and then we tried to leave. That's when things got strange. We could see the highway from certain intersections, but no matter which road we took, we never reached it. Every turn bent away from the highway. Roads ended in dead stops, or curved in the wrong direction. It was like the town itself was twisting against us. And yes, we tried the GPS, but it was useless. Maps showed roads that didn't exist, or led us into blocked paths. The signal kept cutting in and out, leaving us stuck in endless loops of wrong turns. We circled the same streets over and over, my chest tightening with each pass. Luke tried to act calm, but I saw his grip tightening on the wheel. Something about this place felt unnatural, like we weren't supposed to be here, like the town itself didn't want us to leave. After 20 minutes of circles, Luke snapped. He turned back toward the gas station. He said he'd ask for directions. I begged him not to go, but he shouted, "We're trapped in the exact place Dad told us to avoid." And he was right. I stayed quiet as he went inside. When he came back, his face looked shaken. He said the clerk had given him directions, but they didn't make sense. 17 miles, in the wrong direction, away from the highway, through back roads in the desert. 17 miles, when the highway was right there. Luke said the man was confident, almost too confident, like he was trying to convince him that this was the only way out. And the questions he asked, where we were headed, how long we'd be traveling. Luke didn't like it. Neither did I. He muttered under his breath, "I don't trust this. We're getting out of here." We drove off, pulled onto a side street, tried to figure out what to do. But my breathing grew faster. I couldn't stop shaking. Something inside me whispered that something terrible was about to happen. And then, as if on cue, a dusty pickup truck pulled up beside us. The window rolled down. A man leaned out and asked if we were lost. Luke hesitated. His hands tightened on the wheel, ready to hit the gas if needed. I sat frozen. My chest was pounding. After a long pause, Luke told him we were trying to reach the highway. He repeated the directions the gas station clerk had given us. The man's tone shifted instantly. His voice sharpened. "Are you out of your mind? Don't go that way, you'd be crazy to take that road." He said it led into desolate backcountry, a place used for drug runs, a place where people disappeared. Then he quickly gave us new directions, and without another word, he drove off. Luke and I didn't speak. We just followed them, and sure enough, a mile outside of town. There it was, a gravel road, hidden, easy to miss. The kind of road you'd never find, unless someone told you. We took it, winding through twists and turns, until finally, we reached the highway. And just like that, it was over. We drove in silence, neither of us wanting to talk about what had just happened. Later, we told our family the story. Sometimes we laugh about it now, but in that moment, it was the most unsettling experience of our lives. And I will never forget that feeling, that town, those stairs, the endless circles. It felt like we had been trapped in a place designed to hold us, a place we were never meant to escape. Luke called it a kind of breathless limbo, not quite suffocating, but knowing it was coming. And I swear, I never want to feel that again. This happened 5 years ago, 5 summers back to be exact. At the time, I was with my girlfriend. Let's just call her PS. We aren't together anymore, but there's no bad blood, no regrets. She was half Croatian, half Brazilian, a fire in her personality that made her unstoppable. When she wanted something, she made it happen. And one of those things was a trip to Europe. We had always promised ourselves we'd do it after college. So, as soon as she graduated, we started planning. There was only one problem. We were broke, painfully broke. So this trip had to be cheap, really cheap. The plan was ambitious. A week in Croatia, finishing with 2 nights in Rijeka, the town where her grandparents were from. She'd never been there before, but she'd grown up on her grandmother's stories about it. And I could see in her face how badly she wanted to walk those same streets. Of course, we couldn't afford fancy hotels, not even decent hostels. Instead, we booked the cheapest Airbnbs and rundown lodges we could find, the kind of places with blurry, flip phone photos and 1-star reviews. But none of that mattered. We were just excited to be going. Zagreb was incredible. Dubrovnik was everything people said it would be. Crowds of tourists made it easy to blend in, to find cheap food, and free fun. But Rijeka was different. It's a port city on the northern coast. Not really a beach town, and definitely not a tourist destination. Walking around, it felt like PS and I were the only outsiders in the entire city. That should have been our first red flag. But honestly, we kind of loved it. She spoke decent Croatian, not fluent, but enough to get by. And I was starting to pick up little bits here and there. We spent the first day just wandering, talking to locals, soaking up what felt like the real Croatia. Everyone seemed friendly enough. But I noticed something. The stares. Not the curious, passing looks you get as a tourist. No, these were different. Lingering. Intense. Like eyes that didn't just see you. They measured you. Still, PS brushed it off. She wasn't bothered. So I told myself I was just being paranoid. The next day, everything changed. We decided to wander further out for lunch. Someone from our Airbnb had mentioned a small local restaurant. Cheap, authentic, amazing seafood. So we walked 15 minutes through quiet streets, into a neighborhood that felt emptier, quieter, with every block. The restaurant was nothing special on the outside. A small building, a few tables, a handwritten menu taped to the window. But when we walked in, the smell hit me. Fresh, homemade, incredible. We sat near the window, ordered way too much food, grilled fish, seafood pasta, bread, and a bottle of wine for €3. It was heaven, and I thought to myself, we'd struck gold. But then they walked in. 5 men, rough looking, the kind of men you instinctively avoid no matter the country. They sat down 2 tables away. Loud voices, sharp laughter, and I remember thinking, annoying, sure, but harmless. Halfway through the meal, P.S. froze. Her eyes shifted past me to the men. Something in her expression changed. She leaned across the table, her voice barely above a whisper. We need to leave. Now. I blinked, confused. What are you talking about? She didn't answer. She was already grabbing her purse. There was something in her tone, something I had never heard from her before. Serious, terrified. So I didn't argue. I tossed down way more money than the meal cost and followed her out. She pulled me along, walking fast, almost dragging me. And when we were outside, I finally demanded an explanation. Her voice shook when she said it. She had overheard their conversation. They were talking about us, about her, not what they wanted to do, but what they were going to do. They talked about separating us first, and about someone named Luca, someone who would know what to do. Her words made my stomach turn cold. She said it didn't sound like fantasy. It sounded like routine. And then I made the mistake of looking back. The men were outside now, all 5 of them, standing together, staring right at us. And the second my eyes met theirs, they started walking. I grabbed her hand. They're following us. We didn't hesitate. We ran, full sprint, through empty residential streets. No people, no cars, just us, and the sound of footsteps pounding behind us. I looked back once and nearly tripped. They were chasing us, not pretending, not hiding, chasing. My heart hammered in my chest. P.S. was faster, fitter than me, but adrenaline kept me going. We zigzagged through random streets, praying we were heading toward the city center. Minutes stretched into eternity. And then, salvation. The sound of traffic. People on the sidewalks. Life. The moment we hit the busy streets, they stopped. I turned back, gasping for air. They were just standing there, 2 blocks away, watching, waiting, but not coming closer. They knew they couldn't do anything, not with witnesses. We stumbled into a cafe, collapsed at a table. P.S. was trembling. She tried to hide her tears, but I saw them. That's when an older Croatian man at the next table leaned toward us. His English was rough, but clear enough. You're lucky, he said. You're idiots, but lucky. When we told him what had happened, he shook his head. Tourists shouldn't go there, not alone, not looking like you. And when P.S. described the restaurant, his face darkened. That place, he said. Criminals, organized crime, very dangerous. I mentioned the police. He laughed, a cold, humorless laugh. Then he paid for his coffee and left without another word. We didn't stay much longer either. We walked straight back to our Airbnb. The rest of the trip? Ruined. We didn't explore. We didn't wander. We barely left our room except to grab food near the center. The last day, we just sat inside, watching movies on my laptop, counting the hours until our flight home. Looking back, I'm grateful. Grateful P.S. understood what they were saying. Grateful she acted without hesitation. Because if she hadn't, if she had waited just a little longer, I don't know what would have happened to us. That day changed me. It changed her, too. She used to be fearless when it came to traveling. But in Rijeka, We both learned how quickly a perfect day can become a nightmare.